such a rich, extraordinary day, and it is almost impossible to put together everything, except that we have two amazing graduate students who make the impossible possible. So what we are trying to do here is to leave for all of us here and for after we leave some thoughts, some ideas about what were the main points, about challenges, what were some facilitating factors or good examples that were shared, what can be some recommendations that we can offer each other and to the world after this. So our students, Amanda, Earl and Maria Bo, have put together a brief 3-pager, and we would like to, your permission for this to be read out. And we would like you to wait until it's read out. And at the end, if there are, we will of course tweak it and we'll have to edit, you know, linguistically, or maybe merge some things that are repetitive, etc. But especially if there are some important point missing, we would like you to look at this with that in mind, and then we will share it with you. So do you agree that we go like that? Yes? So we would like to invite Amanda and Maria to read through. So.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to everyone who's contributed their knowledge and experience today. So I'm just going to start reading, and then Maria will take over. So a summary. Languages are a critical part of identity, necessary not only for communication, but to transmit the epistemic resources, ways of living and knowing, and cultural traditions of Indigenous peoples and their communities. While the right is recognized by many international normative frameworks, such as the UN DRIP, we must move from the macro level of codifying language as right in policy and law to holding states accountable for compliance with and implementation of mechanisms to protect, preserve, develop, promote, and revitalize Indigenous languages and their speakers, with emphasis on the speakers themselves. Indigenous peoples of the world have contributed to humanity by bringing in the importance of cultural and spiritual rights to the attention of the UN, to legal frameworks, and to the world at large. So symposium participants emphasized the following salient challenges and problems. We must not forget the dark colonial histories and engagement of many states in cultural and linguistic genocide, such as, for example, residential schools and the banning of children from speaking their mother tongues. When children, as well as adults, are forced to lose their community's language, they lose their pride, self-esteem, knowledges, and cultural traditions, which are rights. States and non-state actors must recognize the way the coloniality of power has worked and continues to affect Indigenous communities. Language loss affects personal, cultural, political, scientific, and economic aspects of our lives, as UNESCO has stated. There are 6,700 languages around the world, 40% of which, according to UNESCO at least, are in danger, probably more than that. Most that are in danger have less than 10,000 speakers, and some have very, very few speakers. This is exacerbated by communities where there are very few. I already said that. Okay. Racialization and discrimination is another a huge challenge. They continue to threaten the use and promotion of Indigenous languages. Perhaps focus should shift from the duties of Indigenous peoples themselves to value and use their languages, because they, for the most part, already do, to the dominant society, and to changing the mindsets that perpetuate this discrimination and judgment of Indigenous language speakers. Lack of human and material resources for mother tongue education. This includes lack of teachers who are trained both in pedagogy and who are able to teach Indigenous languages. Materials such as textbooks and guides must not only be created in Indigenous languages, but these and the education they provide must be culturally relevant, placed in contexts of the communities in which they are carried out. States need to move from creation and codification of norms, laws, and policies to compliance and implementation. More professional translation interpretation services are needed in judicial and other legal processes, as well as in the provision of health services. Access to health is seriously impeded, as we've seen today, by language barriers and lack of dissemination of health information in Indigenous languages. Outbreaks of Ebola and Zika, for instance, have been linked to such barriers. Urban contexts and migration to urban areas often accelerates language loss and increases monolingualism in dominant or colonial languages. There's a digital disadvantage and lack of access to the information society, which further threatens to marginalize Indigenous languages and their speakers. And finally, in this long list of problems, transnational existence and organization of Indigenous language speakers creates challenges for ensuring their language rights across borders. And moving on to some positive examples, which is really great that we've heard today. We've heard of positive examples of Indigenous-led and other initiatives for Indigenous language revitalization and strengthening in Aotearoa, New Zealand, among the Cree peoples, the Mohawk peoples, throughout Latin America, throughout Asia, in the Middle East, in the Arctic, among the Sami peoples in particular. Some specific positive examples include the use of digital technology and media to make Indigenous scripts and literature visible to more people across the world. The use of arts and music, such as the creation and dissemination of poetry, newsletters, and rap by Indigenous language speakers. Translation directly between Indigenous languages and non-dominant languages as a form of resistance. The establishment of immersion schools that have seen intergenerational success in revitalizing and passing on Indigenous languages. And in general, symposium speakers underlined that the vital force for the revitalization of Indigenous languages resides with the will of the Indigenous peoples themselves.
Okay, I'm going to take our last section on recommendations for the future. The symposium underlined the link between language revitalization, Indigenous lands and territories, including living heritage sites, and the recuperation of Indigenous knowledge, as well as control of data collection. As a general recommendation, the symposium highlighted the need for more multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral, and multi-disciplinary approaches, it's a big mouthful, before revitalization with Indigenous peoples, governments, academia, NGOs, the private sector, and others. We have some specific recommendations, which include drawing from the standards of the UNDRIP. The symposium stresses the importance of Indigenous languages first in legal and judicial proceedings, in the education system, and in media. In the fundamental importance of using a human rights framework and approach for language justice, enabling action to be carried out on macro but also micro levels. The importance of focusing on the language rights of Indigenous peoples and reconciliation efforts. The need to enact legislation and establish institutions for Indigenous languages with the effective participation and leadership of Indigenous people themselves. The need to recuperate traditional names of places and persons. To reiterate that UNPFII's recommendation for the need to prepare more teachers trained both in pedagogy and to teach Indigenous languages. In the education, focus should be placed on making Indigenous language learning appealing and relevant to younger generations, especially in urban areas. And now for some more directed recommendations. Turning to the UN system, participants recommended that the UN's Special Representative on the Prevention of Genocide focus his attention on the topic of persecution or suppression of Indigenous languages. It was also recommended that UNESCO convene a ministerial level meeting for states to report on realities on the ground regarding Indigenous knowledge. The International Year of Indigenous Languages 2019 is viewed by all as a special opportunity, something to galvanize action and create synergies between all actors working toward language awareness and revitalization with Indigenous peoples. The symposium participants also appealed to academia, Colombia, to reconsider the archival approach to research on Indigenous languages, urging them instead to bring their research to the communities, to work with people in the communities. Research must focus not only on languages, but above all on the people who speak them. Overall, this is just the last point. Academics have a role to play in decolonizing their universities, including through the promotion of Indigenous languages and knowledge systems, as well as through cooperation with Indigenous academics, communities, and organizations. Is there one more? Okay, sorry, one last slide. really, last one, I promise. The commitment, endurance, and successes of Indigenous language speakers and parents transmitting their ancestral languages to their children should be celebrated, because it's hard to sustain language every day. It's hard work. We need to recognize the role that families, households, and local community members play in teaching Indigenous languages to children in the revitalization of these endangered languages. This means that more support and resources need to go to homes and families bravely engaging in such efforts.
Thank you very much. First of all, let's give them a hand. Thank you very much for doing this. And I would like to open it for things that we have missed or need to change. Yes, Laurie, and then.
To NGOs, states, and the UN system in working with Indigenous peoples on Indigenous languages, so the human rights instruments.
Okay. We will add that. I took note. Isabel, please.
I think the importance of love was brought out by a number of speakers. So, yeah, the importance of love. Maybe it could be added in with the last point. I mean, I think it's related to families, but also to institutions like schools and even academia.
Yes. More ideas to add? Yes.
I just wondered, and this is something that hasn't really come through, but sorry. It's all right. It hasn't come through, but that UNESCO could play more of, and I'm not sure I've got the wording right here, UNESCO 2019, the UN Permanent Forum, could play more of a role in coordinating the sharing of knowledge amongst Indigenous communities globally. Mm-hmm. I'm not just saying that like everyone comes to the forum. What I'm hearing from people, but it hasn't come out as strong as what I'm expressing at this time, is that those who have the resources to bring groups together to discuss these issues around language, Article 13, 14, and 16, to help share that information should empower those communities and play a central role in coordinating the togetherness, the love sharing globally. And I keep thinking about not a criticism, but we already sorted into sections, yeah? Into like Pacific, Oceania, all of those sorts of areas. That it would be really good to empower those communities who are time poor because they're involved in it, in revitalization, and resource poor, to be empowered to have regional opportunities to what we say in Māori wānanga, to meet and share. And I say that because always, New Zealand is next to the end of the world. And people always say, how can we come and see what you do? And, you know, we're a really tiny nation. And so it's around saying, how do we share that? We try to get to forums like this to share as much as we can. But to give nations experiences to see and to feel and to know, and through experiential learning, is so much more powerful than Māori coming out to the rest of the world to try and talk about what we do. So if UNESCO, the forum, the whoever, can empower those areas, the Pacific, you know, all the different regions, or cross-fertilization of those things for that to happen regionally. I think that would be looking at grassroots, you know, level and really make a difference. So that's what I'm hearing in some people's voices.
Thank you. I think we all agree about that. Thank you. Miriam.
Hello, yeah, on the same idea of trying to have the UNESCO and the year of the 2019 that is coming out, to try to reach to the community of speakers, to the speech communities, and especially to the young people in there. And I'm talking about that bracket of adolescents. When I established my language rights Facebook, group, I never imagined that it would be so crowded in less than a year. We have 7,000 now. And some days I wake up and I have 200 messages on my inbox of people telling me stories. These are non-academics. These are people that live their lives using both languages, and that have been through a lot. I think there is something from this bottom-up that I think I would love for the UNESCO to take into account. Okay, and just one example is you saw the amount of hip hop and rap artists. The age range of those kids are between 16 and 21. And the way they are bringing pride and they are facing this monolingual, in this case Latin America, very strong monolingual states by using rap or using hip hop and coming and bringing their voices. It's such an extraordinary, event for them and for us, okay? And I think it would be great to see, for example, a gathering of all of them to acknowledge, because that's a very important age for me, and the role that they're providing to other young people because of this terrible shame, la vergüenza idiomática, no? I think that's shared all over the world, how children are being, or even, many of us survived this sort of situation of feeling shame, and how all of this that looks like policy or, looks like a very macro research can touch people's lives and families. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other word? Yes.
My name is Doug Huff. I would like to ask UNESCO to instill trust. Somehow we got to learn how to trust each other. Using the example of the wind talkers, they used our language as a weapon and we hurt each other. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. We will try to grasp, to put the word trust in the way also we put the word love. They should go together, trust and love. Do we have any other comment? Yes, our friend there.
Yes, thank you all for coming to New York. I really appreciate the talk and the gathering. One thing that might have been on there, but I'm not quite sure what was mentioned throughout the day, was that it's important to flip the norm, that the norm is multilingualism.
Yes, we have captured. Thank you very much. So with these words, we will work a little bit to make it a bit more elegant after the meeting here. And we will share it on our websites of the Center for the Institute for Comparative Literature in Society and the Institute for the Study of Human Rights. And in the future, this has been an incredible inspiration for us and for our university. And I have to say something that I heard Professor Luz whisper to my ears, a series of books, she said. Oh my God, we are getting very excited here by everything, So the university has to open to do what the university is good at. We do research, we do books, we do symposia, and we have to contribute from our corner. So we will continue this with the help of everybody. And I want to take one more moment to thank two people that we did not thank this morning, two of our volunteers, Jafet Perez and Nadia Ismail, our students, because these are people who share the passion, You mentioned the word passion. People have a passion about this, and they work with this passion around this question. So I want to thank them, and I want to thank again our rapporteurs for doing such a wonderful job. And I want to thank our interpreter, Cassandra Smithis, for making it. Yes, and one day we will have interpretation also in indigenous languages, right? And personally, I cannot finish this without very sincerely thanking, in front of all of you, my very dear colleague, Lydia Liu, because, yeah.
I'm very pleased this is such an educational experience for our students. And our students all learn so much, and they're going to carry this forward, which is very exciting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.